This presentation is going to cover the 17th century Italian nun and composer Chiara Margherita Cozzolani. Margherita Cozzolani was born into a very wealthy family, but her parents were not of noble patriarchy. It is likely that they gained their wealth from being successful merchants or artisans. There is evidence to suggest that in her youth, Cozzolani studied music with the Rignoni family, who were famous in Italy as a family of instrumental and vocal teachers. Just before taking her vows at the Santa Radegonda convent, Cozzolani's father passed away, leaving her dowry to be collected by her uncles. With their help, Cozzolani was able to follow in the footsteps of the many women in her family who vowed at Santa Radegonda, including her aunt, sister, and several nieces. The Santa Radegonda convent is located across the street from the Milan Cathedral, pictured bottom right, and was famous for its virtuosic singers. Many Europeans would travel there for ceremonial feast days, and would crowd into the public section of the convent just so they could hear the nuns sing. One of Cozzolani's contemporaries, Filippo Pinchinelli, writes, "The nuns of Santa Radegonda of Milan are gifted with such rare and exquisite talents in music that they are acknowledged to be the best singers of Italy. They wear the Cassinese habits of the Order of St. Benedict, but underneath their black garb they seem to any listener to be white and melodious swans, who fill hearts with wonder and enrapture tongues in their praise. Among these sisters, Donna Chiara Margherita Cozzolani merits the highest praise. Chiara meaning clear in name, but even more so in merit, and Margherita meaning a pearl for her unusual and excellent nobility of musical invention." Cozzolani was in her late teens when she took her vows, and began actively composing music beginning 20 years later in the 1640s. Though she only composed for 10 years, she published 4 works, only 2 of which survive in their entirety today. The first piece Cozzolani produced was Primavera di Fiori Musicali, and was a collection of motets. This work was published by a local Milanese printer, Giorgio Rolla. Not all of her pieces were published locally, and as we discuss the rest of Cozzolani's music, the publisher and the dedicatees proved to be very interesting. Her second published work was Concert Sacri, published in 1642. This was a collection of 20 motets for 1 to 4 voices plus continuo, and also included a setting of the Mass Ordinary. This piece was published not in Milan but in Venice, and was dedicated to Prince Mathis de' Medici, whose family were well-known patrons of the arts. The excerpt you're about to hear is from Cozzolani's Concert Sacri, and is a setting of the familiar psalm Dixit Dominus. Be listening for how Cozzolani's setting deviates from the traditional Dixit Dominus we've studied in class. In the year 1648, Cozzolani published her book of solo works. This work only survives in vocal parts, but was printed originally with a full score. While the idea of a full score isn't new to us, in the 17th century it was just being developed by the publisher of Cozzolani's solo collection, a man named Alessandro Vincetti. This work was dedicated to Claudio Benedetti, president of the Cassinese Benedictine congregation. This dedication was seen as a way of formally linking the male and female houses. Lastly, in 1650 she published a large collection of psalms and 8 voice motets, which were dedicated to Alberto Bodo, a bishop from a small Venetian city called Crema, located just outside of Milan. Cozzolani's various dedications can be seen as a way for her to cultivate ties and develop other facets of her own world. Just after the publishing of her last piece, Cozzolani became abbess and later prioress at Santa Radegonda, both of which were high-responsibility jobs that didn't leave time for composing. Cozzolani disappears from the church records around 1678, leading historians to believe she likely passed away sometime in her late 70s. Despite her short-lived career, Cozzolani was one of the most prolific composers of her time.